Coach, I know yesterday was very disappointing. You have an opportunity this week as you head to Miami, and late in the game you had that 22-point run. We'll get into the rest of it later, but what does that do for you going into preparation this week and the game next week? How do you think it helps, if at all?
Mark, we've always talked about finishing. And we've had some games before where we felt like we've been in them and we didn't finish. Although we weren't in this ball game like we wanted to be, I'm not surprised with how we played in the fourth quarter. That's what this football team is. And in moving forward, I know that's going to be beneficial to us simply because what it tells you about this football team is that this football team is always going to play hard. This football team is always going to play to the end. And the other thing I'd like to say about that, about the finish, was this, is that our fans in that ball game, at the end of that ball game, going into the fourth quarter, was such a benefit for us and our players. And we felt it. And I appreciate that for everybody that was there when we were going through what we were going through, because I felt like at that point, I was in a playoff game going into the fourth quarter when all those good things were happening.
Yeah.
It was interesting to watch too, Coach. Momentum is always a question people ask. Is momentum real? Is momentum real? I'm like, yeah, I think it is, because you start sensing, you feeling it. But it also felt like in the fourth quarter, there's some guys making some plays. I mean, Chris Conley made one heck of a catch as he was crossing on the over route in the fourth quarter. It just felt like guys maybe upped their game a little bit. Like, hey, man, yeah, we got to finish. But also it felt like they took their game up to an even higher level because guys started really making some plays in that fourth quarter.
Well, they did, and I think what ended up happening there, John, was that we started playing better. We started doing things that we should have been doing in the first, second, and third quarter.
Right.
And unfortunately, it took us that long to get that done. But, I mean, that's always encouraging to see that. And that tells you so much about this football team. And also it tells you where this football team is headed. Once we get those things corrected from a coaching standpoint that we need to do as coaches, then I feel like that you're going to see end of games just like we just saw the one yesterday with the way we played, offensively, defensively, and special teams, because all three units did something during the course of that fourth quarter to end up enabling us to get on the scoreboard with the onside kick, with getting the stops on defense, and then offense making those plays.
All right, let's talk about some of the young players who can help you now and in the future. Nico Collins, 4 catches yesterday, Coach, and he's had some action. He had the injuries, come back. What do you make of his performance and where he's headed?
Well, I like where he's headed, Mark. We expect that out of him. I'm not surprised that he's playing that way. He's a very talented young man. He's been Brandon and Chris Conley have been great mentors to him while he was out during the injury. He saw how those guys practiced. He saw how their mindset was about being a pro, and he's been very diligent about doing all the things you need to do to be a quality player in this league, and it's starting to show in his play.
Coach, another young guy got the opportunity yesterday, and that's Brevin Jordan, to go out on the field. Young man you drafted. You talk about Nico Collins. We've seen Roy a lot. Now we see Brevin yesterday. My question about Brevin isn't so much what he did yesterday, but as a coach, how much do you have to play psychologist in some sense with a young man that, hey, look, we still believe in you. Yeah, I know you're inactive. We still believe there's going to come an opportunity, but you got to be ready for that opportunity. And it felt like Brevin was that. But how much do you have to kind of play psychologist, especially with young guys like, a rookie like Brevin in particular?
Well, the thing about him was he knew that his time was going to come. And basically, because of the way he's practiced and the way he's gone about his business and doing the other team's plays as a tight end and watching our current tight ends play and do their job, we knew that when that opportunity came for him, that at this point in the year, we felt like he was ready and deserved that opportunity. He went out and he played very well for us. And again, as I said with Nico, I expected him to do what he did yesterday. He has that talent. When Nick drafted, he and those draft picks that we've got right now, those guys that are now starting to get to play, obviously you see why we took them and see the potential that they got and what's expected ahead for them.
Brevin is more of the receiving type of tight end, but what about the blocking part of his game, Coach, and how important is that to continue to develop?
Well, that's very important moving forward. And I think as he gets a little bit stronger, he understands that it's a two-way thing. It's not about just catching passes. It's about blocking and it's about catching. And I go back and use that term that we use with our players all the time is you're a football player first, not a tight end, not a receiver, which means you got to run, you got to catch, you got to block, you got to tackle, you got to do all those things. And he understands that because that's how all our tight ends approach it. and he's doing it the same way. And I think when as he gets more playing time and as we move forward in our run game, he'll be a big part of that also.
Coach, you said something that hit me. You talk about Brevin. You were like, getting stronger. And for some reason, John Grenard and Charlie Heck flashed in my mind because those are two guys that were here for the offseason in this building, working out every single day. How valuable was that time for them, and how valuable can that time be for guys like Nico and Brevin going forward?
Well, it just goes to show why Charlie and those guys are in the position they're in right now playing for us because of the work that they put in during the offseason. And that's a great example of why it is important to be involved doing that. Obviously, we knew Charlie needed to get stronger. He got stronger. Yeah. Nobody worked harder at doing what he needed to do to get better going through the off season. And that's a classic example of why that is so important. And moving forward, all of our other guys understand that you see the results that these guys are having and to put yourself in a position to contribute and help the football team.
Coach, can you talk to the listeners about what they saw at the end of the game, the up-tempo stuff, and it working really well, and why that can't happen earlier in the game? Why can't you go up-tempo all the time or more of the time, or what goes into that? Can you just describe some of that for us,
Yes,
please?
that's a good question too, Mark. And, we've talked about going up-tempo earlier in ball games, but the thing about when you go up-tempo early in the ball games, you got to have a rhythm, and you got to be consistent. Because if you're not, then all of a sudden now you're putting yourself in a situation where you're going 1, 2, 3 and out, and you're not developing a rhythm. You're not getting things going. And the situation we were in yesterday afternoon is we were down, and we needed to have some touches where we needed to get the ball in the end zone. Time became a factor, and so we went more into not just up-tempo, but we went into more of a 2-minute mode, which is a little bit faster than the up-tempo. When you do up-tempo, you're not necessarily trying to get a play off like really, really quickly. You're just trying to keep them from letting them substitute on defense, trying to see what they're going to play, and then kind of put them in the situation you want them to put in. But yesterday, because we were down, we were more in a 2-minute type mode at the end, especially in the fourth quarter of just trying to get the scores as quickly as we can and getting the ball back and get back and doing it again. And I thought our offense did a nice job of doing that yesterday.
Coach, you mentioned different reasons for why you might go with a little faster tempo. One of the ones that I think about, and I'm not saying this is what you do, but I want to get your thoughts on it, is you don't think, you just react. And I heard a phrase one time, you think and you're stinking. And I was like, well, that's kind of good. And I don't know if that's the case, but does that happen when you go to up-tempo that to go up-tempo, it's got to be fast, so you've got to sort of maybe limit some of the things you do that you're no longer thinking, you're just reacting and playing? Does that sort of happen when you go up-tempo?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on you on that. When you're thinking, you're stinking.
Yeah.
When I do that in situations, that's what I feel. That's what happens when I start thinking. It ain't a very good deal when you do that.
Yeah.
Football is reaction.
Yeah.
When you're out there, it's not about – you already know what has to happen when a play starts to go on.
Sure.
And you've got to be able to react, but you got to know prior to that exactly what you got to do, where you got to go. And if you do, then you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're just reacting. And things happen so quickly out there. If you're having to think about it, you're usually a step behind, and you're not able to do what you need to do to be successful.
How do you get there, though, to where it is second nature like that? Practice obviously has to help make perfect, but game experience, is there no substitute? How do you see it, Coach? And I imagine guys develop at different speeds no matter what the position is.
Well, the first thing is preparation. There's a responsibility that players got to have as far as preparation away from us when they're not in the building. And video, watching video, when not just here, but when they take it at home, watching themselves. And I say this all the time, a picture's worth 1,000 words. When you see things, we can talk about it all we want to talk about it. But when you see it and you see yourself doing certain things, or you see guys doing things that are very good that you feel like you could do, then you always want to take that and use that and put you in a situation where that when you're out there in that situation now, because you know it, because you prepared for it, you can go out and react and play the game that you know you need to play.
Coach, on the sidelines, you have the Microsoft Surface tablets, right? But you can only look at pictures, correct?
Exactly right.
Now, there's some states that I know, especially in high school football, you can actually watch the video. How would that change things if NFL coaches and NFL players on the sideline can actually watch the video of what they've just seen, and how that might help them?
Well, the thing about NFL game as opposed to some high school games is things happen so much quicker and change at our level.
Of course.
And basically just with the surface that we have. I mean, you get a quick look and you see it. You kind of just want to see how they lined up. You see a couple of different pictures.
Sure.
Once you see that picture, you move on to the next one. When you're watching and moving, and like we do this in practice, we have that in practice.
Yeah, right.
Actually, where you get to in between plays, they're looking at it. Then all of a sudden, when it's time to go, you got to go.
Right.
And so it's a little bit different deal
Right.
from high school, simply because things happen so much quicker,
Sure.
and you don't have the time
Yeah.
to be able to go through what was happening. And then what happens too is when you're watching it, you have a tendency to watch what you're doing a little bit longer than to see where should I have lined up. And what you want to do, why did he make this play on me? Where was I at? And that's more so important than being able to see the thing being run.
Yeah.
Coach, you hadn't given up that many sacks prior to yesterday, but yesterday the 5 sacks against Davis, pass protection was a problem. How did he hold up mentally through all that, the frustration, the difficulty in trying to get the ball off, the pressure he was under by that Rams front?
Well, just look at the end of the ball game. They were still bringing pressure then. Obviously, it didn't bother him at all there. He knows that's part of the game. A couple of those times when it starts to feel, and as he gets more experience, you get the ball out. You get the ball out and you prevent that from happening. You throw it in the dirt. You do those kinds of things. But I thought he held up very well. I don't think it was a problem. I didn't think he was looking and feeling the rush. And it showed at the end of the game because they were still bringing pressure at the end of the game, and he was still getting the ball off.
Brandon Cooks told us on Texans Radio, he said he thought he had that move in him with that long touchdown reception where he could fake and then go. So do you encourage that kind of thing, the players talking amongst themselves and being creative that way along with the playbook?
Well, you got to put yourself in position to be able to get the ball off. And Pep and those guys talk all the time about you slide. You slide and you get yourself a window. And once you see that window, you let it go because it's not going to always be there. And you got to make sure that you put yourself in a situation to do that. And he's learning to do that.
Coach, you mentioned it. We talked about the young guys, Nico, Brevin, making some plays at the end of that game. But you also had 2 key veterans. We talked about Brandon Cooks a second ago. But also Rex went in there at running back and did some good things for you. What does it say about those vets down 38-8 or 38-7, whatever the score was, that they're still putting in that amount of effort to go put the ball in the end zone for the offense?
Well, that's what this football team is all about.
Yeah.
They're pros. They've been there. They've done that. The bottom line is this is our job. Regardless of what the score is, you want to do the best that you can do to put yourself in a situation to do what needs to be done to be successful on the field. And those guys are consummate pros. Yeah. And those guys being on the field at that time had a lot to do with us being able to do what we did.
How much does it help you as a coach to have a guy like that? I don't want to use the proverbial coach on the field sort of thing, but I would imagine there's value in vets, guys that have been there, that have done that.
Well, again, that's like having another coach on the field.
Yeah.
And there's a comfort level. You mentioned earlier about reacting instead of thinking. Those guys don't think when they're out there. Yeah. They've been there. They've done it. They know the situation. They've been in those situations, and they're very comfortable doing that. And obviously, when you've been comfortable doing those kind of situations, good things happen. And it happened for us yesterday with those guys in there.
I know you didn't have King yesterday, but you had Tremont Smith, and he had a nice return. Looked like he did pretty well. Had a pretty good game on special teams for you, Coach.
He has given us some juice back there, Mark, and he's actually very good at it. And obviously, we don't want to end up having a whole bunch of kickoff returns when we're in the game. But, with the punts and those kinds of things, he's got a knack for that. And he and Dez both give us a little bit of juice back there that we hadn't had earlier.
But Coach, the onside kick that you recovered, could you draw that up any better?
You couldn't. And here's the one thing about onside kicks. When you do those things, it's a very low percentage thing in this league about getting onside kicks. Yeah. I think Frank had mentioned to me there's been like 23, 24. There's only been 3 recovered. We're one of them.
Wow.
But you practice those things. And
you do, Mark.
That's the kind of thing Fairbairn can almost practice by himself, right? Just trying to get that odd hop, if you will.
He does, and he not only got an odd hop, he got a great hop on that. Yeah. And our guys are in position because we've practiced those things, and we're able to get it and keep momentum going and put us in position to score. There's
a college coach. He's now at Presbyterian. He was in high school. He onside kicks every single time. I mean, you couldn't do that in the NFL, but – how crazy is that? As a head coach, you look and go, wait, I got an onside kick he onside kicks every single time. Well, I'll say this. I'm not going to end up onside kicking every time. But I will say this. During yesterday's game, there was a thought. I went to Frank one time and says, Frank, just to give us a little kick start, I says, Frank, how about an onside kick right here? He looked at me all crazy. I says, kick it off. So I said, no, let's go.
All right, what about prep for this week? Because here you are. I know you don't like where you are with the losing streak and everything, Coach, and you said you want to get that second victory. So you have the Miami Dolphins. What can you tell us about what you know about them right now?
Well, they're in a similar situation we are, record-wise and whatnot. They've had some football games they've played in that they could have won, didn't finish them. We know that feeling. We've been there. Our focus right now is just on them. And Mark and John, it's not just about Miami Dolphins right now for us. It's about us getting better at what we need to do. And I felt like coming out of the game yesterday with the momentum offensively and defensively and special teams that we had in the fourth quarter, we hopefully carry that with us and start the first, second, and third quarter that way in Miami.
Coach Davis Mills threw, how many games are we through? 8 games now. I think he's played in every one but that first one. What's kind of your overall assessment about where Davis was and where Davis is right now and the improvements that you've seen him make? I know yesterday was tough for the first 3 quarters, but that fourth quarter, man, he really put 310 yards up. I mean, he's done some good things. What's your assessment of what Davis has done?
Well, experience is the best teacher you can have. I mean, once you're out there doing it, he's doing it. He's getting better and better. As I said before, he doesn't make the same mistakes over and over again. Yeah. He learns from those things, which is very, very important playing that position. And not only that, the mistakes that he's made and whatnot, you don't ever see him with his head down. Our players don't ever see him with his head down. He comes back. Why did I make the mistake? Why did it happen? We correct it. He goes back out. He gets it corrected, and he moves on, and he's getting better and better and more comfortable.
Well, do you change up your practice routine this time of year at all as you get deeper into the season? Do you go in pads less or change the physical nature of what you're doing? Because the season's been going on for a while now when you include those 3 preseason games, and here you are over halfway through the total thing.
Well, I think, Mark, at this point, we're kind of going like we've been going. I think after the bye week, we may change things a little bit going into the second half of the season. Right. But right now, this week, we're going to go this week just like we've been going through the first few games this year, and at some point we will end up changing because of the long season.
You have all the sports science stuff helping you now as well. I mean, and you coached also in times where you didn't have as much of that stuff, and you mentioned Sam Weish in your press conference and Bill Cowher, guys like that. How different was it when they were evaluating where their team was at physically or whatever the case may be versus now when you have all of this extra data?
Well, I'll tell you this. If we didn't have the rules in place today, back then we'd be practicing today, but we can't practice today. So that's the difference right now. But that's old school. Things aren't like that anymore because of the sports science and everything involved with it right now, and because of player safety. There's a certain way you got to do things, and we're doing them those way, and for everybody's safety involved, we got to follow the rules. But everybody's under those same rules, and basically we're only allowed to go so many days in pads for the whole season anyway. So we have a certain number. So after you use those up, you don't really have any days to go in pads. So I'm glad I got a few left, and we'll be in pads.
Yeah.
Do you miss the old school ways?
I do not miss the old school ways, because, at that time we just didn't really know what we know now, John.
Yeah.
And basically we just did what everybody else did prior to that.
Yeah.
And, again, I'm going to go back to it all has something to do with the player safety and whatnot,
Yeah,
Not that we didn't think about player safety back then, about what happened. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger now. The game has changed. And we have to change as coaches and change in the way we do things.
Just have so much more information nowadays than we've ever had.
Well, that's the one thing for me being old school.
Yeah.
That information, I can only consume so much information now. My brain is not quite like that. But I do know the information that I need. The good thing about today's technology is you can get that information you need in a hurry.
Yeah.
As opposed to back then, you had to spend half the night getting the information. Now you can get in minutes.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, technology has been a blessing for all of us as coaches.
Yeah, when you got on the plane in the 90s, you didn't have the tape to watch. Now you can watch it right away, for better or worse. Right?
That's right. And plus, you had those 8 millimeters Mark. So
the sound of the projector.
And plus, you could be on the plane and it break, and then you got to splice it back together again.
Yeah.
So things have changed for the better.
Did you ever, as a coach, have to drive and meet another coach and bring him like 3 tapes, and he gives you 3 tapes? I mean, now it's all up on the cloud somewhere.
I'll tell you a quick story here. My first year in coaching, I was at Austin Peay State University. I was working for a guy named Booch Donnelly who had coached me, gave me my first job. I happened to be the guy to do what you just said. Me and another guy, I was in Clarksville, Tennessee. I had to drive to Nashville, Tennessee, which is about an hour drive. And I was going to meet a coach from Middle Tennessee. And we were going to exchange film, those reels, exchange film. And I go up there to exchange it. Now, remember now, I had just graduated from Vanderbilt University. So I was still knew some people there, right? I'm my first year in coaching. I don't really know very much.
Yeah.
So I go get the video. I didn't realize when I went up there to get the video, the guy was a little late, all right, bringing the video. So he was a little late. Well, I made it a little bit later because I had one of my friends call me that was still at Vanderbilt. So I go over to see him. So by the time I get back to Clarksville at Austin Peay State University with the video, I walk in the meeting, me and the guy that was with me, and the whole coaching staff were sitting in the meeting room. And all I remember is I got called so many names when I walked in that building because I did not have that video back in time because they were all waiting on it. So I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson very quickly about them. I was about 3 feet tall when they got through with me.
Oh, that is priceless. All right, Coach Culley, the Ask Coach question of the week presented by Amegy Bank. So, Coach, this is about coaching kids. Coaching youth league sports. What advice, what do's and don'ts might you have, stuff off the top of your head when you're coaching kids?
Well, the thing about it is, first of all, make sure that kid you're coaching wants to do whatever it is you're coaching.
Okay.
If they don't want to do whatever it is you're coaching, don't make them do it. They have to want to do that. And if they want to do it, the thing is that the most important thing that we say about coaching our team at the professional level is there's a basic fundamentals about whatever sport it is that you're going to coach about learning. And the best way to continue on and to want to be good at what you're doing and to learn it is to make sure you're teaching those young kids the fundamentals of whatever sport that is. And I encourage everybody, it doesn't matter what the sport is, to start as young as you can and to make sure that when you're starting that the people that are teaching you the basic fundamentals of what that sport is. It's not about winning and losing at that time. It's about learning how to play whatever it is you're trying to play.
Coach, I've said this often. I think great coaches could coach any sport and be successful. True, false?
True. And I say this because when you've heard people call different guys in the league ball coach.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see them say football coach or basketball coach. They're ball coach.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's a compliment for anybody to tell you, regardless of what sport you're in. They say, hey, look, not that he's a football coach, but he's a flat-out ball coach.
Yeah.
And that's a total compliment to know that it doesn't matter because coaching is teaching.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what the sport is. We're all trying to teach and coach the same fundamentals.
I'm now changing that. That's my Ted Lasso theory. You can coach if you're a good coach, you can coach any sport.
Exactly right. Whether you can or not, we think we can.
Right. Yeah, that's very true.
Vince Lombardi coached high school basketball.
Yes.
He was pressed into action and did pretty well, I think. So
I'm 1-0 as a basketball coach.
You're 1-0?
I'm taking that to my grave.
You're
too.
undefeated.
100%.
Well, I can tell you right now, I've told you what I thought about. I feel like I could coach anything, but I'm not coaching anything but football right now.
Yeah, we understand that. But
we know that.
yeah, and as far as the youth league sports thing goes, one sport specialize, or do you think kids should just spread out, play different things until they get to a certain age?
Do everything you feel like that you feel good about wanting to try.
Okay.
You know, I've never been the specialized kind of growing up in the old school days. When one sport was over, what's the next one? I jump right into it. When that one was over, what's the next one? I jump right into it. And I'll tell you this, each sport helped me with the sport that I was playing before. I learned something in that sport. Going back to John and what you said about if you're a ball coach, you're a ball coach. It's the same thing about teaching fundamentals.
Yeah.
You know, no matter whether it's basketball, football, soccer, volleyball, whatever it may be.
Right.
Play as many things as you feel like you feel comfortable wanting to play.
See, this is where I'm at, trying to force my kid to play a musical instrument. Should I do that or not?
Let me say this, Mark.
Okay.
You just said one word that you should never use with a kid.
F word.
Force. Okay.
That's the word, force. Now, we force block and we force a guy, but you don't force a kid.
Gotcha. Coach, this has been great. Thanks so much for joining us, and best of luck against the Dolphins.
Thank you
Sunday.
very much, both of you.